You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. All right, LSU and Florida State, the marquee matchup of week one of the college football season. Unfortunately, it's not a great, deep weekend of games. I don't care. We're all going to be watching anyway. But Sunday night, primetime, standalone, ABC, the Camping World kickoff down in Orlando, number 5 LSU, number 8 Florida State. This is the game, the singular biggest game on the marquee that everyone is going to be looking forward to this weekend, and a weekend where all of us have just craved college football for 8 months, and we got an appetizer on Saturday with week 0, and the entree is coming this weekend, and the gigantic 45-day dry-aged bone-in ribeye is LSU Florida State, and I'm jacked up for it. Now, it was so interesting talking to Brian Kelly on Monday at his press conference because so much of what Brian Kelly had to say, and you can read it. You can read a human. You know, when you watch it, it's like a parent with their child. Like, you know, whenever if you're a parent, like, you know when your child is lying to you, you know when they're being truthful, just because you interact with them so much. It's like that sort of when we get to watch Brian Kelly in these press conferences because we talk to him all the time. And you can just tell the confidence, the complete about face from the emotion of a year ago. A year ago, they didn't know who the starting center was going to be against Florida State on the Monday before the game. Now, like, you got 9 dudes you trust that could play on that offensive line. You got a 5th-year senior starter at quarterback. You got talent everywhere, and you got guys that have completely bought in. And Brian Kelly said it. This team is dramatically different than a year ago.
We're a smarter football team. We understand the systems. We understand the process. We understand the things necessary to become more consistent in everything that we do to be a championship football team.
So remember, when Brian Kelly got here, so much of everything a year ago was implementing culture. And yes, they were ahead of schedule last year. There's no doubt. Winning 10 games and, you know, beating Alabama and all, going to the SEC championship game, winning the West. But Brian Kelly, like, was very clear. They are just dramatically different now. He pointed out, you know, so much of, like, the accountability the team had to do when he first got here about, like, every day you had to go onto your phone and log what you ate and when you woke up and all that sort of stuff. Now it's just habitual. It's what they do now. They're not learning all of these systems. They're just implementing them. And he said that this team has done a great job preparing in this offseason, in this fall camp, and now the challenge is at hand.
You know, we've been preparing since the last game we've played, and now we'll see what this team does when it comes time to perform. I have no idea. I know they've prepared really well, and my experience tells me that teams that prepare well, when they flip the switch to performance, that they can and will perform well.
We'll get to find out on Saturday night. Now, a couple of things, specifically some housekeeping stuff that Brian Kelly talked about. We learned about a month ago that every Monday and throughout game week, Brian Kelly was going to put out an injury report. So he, true to his word, he did that today. There were 3 players on the injury report. Here was the update.
You know, we've got 3 guys on the injury list. Amani Goodwin will be listed as doubtful. Kimo will be listed as questionable, and Josh will be listed as probable, Josh Williams. And we'll have 1 player unavailable to us, and that's Mason Smith.
So, a couple things. Remember, we've talked a lot about the running back room and the fact that you've got 8 scholarship players. Well, take Armani Goodwin and remove him. He's not going to play. Well, he said he's doubtful. Okay, so not out, but listed as doubtful. Josh Williams, probable for this weekend as well. Kimo, of course, is Kimo Makaneoli, who we've seen cross-trained at both tackle and guard spots. He's been a backup left tackle. He's been a backup right guard. We've seen him at both spots in this fall camp. That means with your depth, it opens up opportunities for a guy like Zalance Hurd and Marlon Martinez as your next guys in at either guard or tackle. And then, obviously, he mentioned Mason Smith there as well. So, by and large, LSU has avoided real critical injuries. Now, The Brian Kelly was also asked, sort of like the biggest difference in the team from a year ago to now, and kind of hinted at it there. And it is, I don't even think it's a question that it's the offensive line. Like, listen to Brian Kelly talk about his line from last year to this year.
I think the biggest improvement has been the ability of our offensive line to gain the continuity up front, having 5 guys working together consistently, and then the ability to adjust after the snap. As you know, this game is played after the snap. There's so much moving, there's so much stemming. The ability to communicate and do the things necessary after the snap, we're so much further along than we were at any time last year. And so that's encouraging moving forward.
So much further along than at any point last year. Like, think about that. Not week 1. So much further along than at any point last year. They were building the bridge as they crossed it last year on the offensive line. I've said this before, but they had 6 different line combinations in the first 8 games. Garrett Dellinger was your center in the opener against Florida State. He had never snapped a ball in a game before. And he's out there against Florida State in the opener in the Dome playing center. So, yes, absolutely. The continuity on the offensive line, the ability to establish a true running game, the ability to protect your quarterback. Will Campbell not playing his first game starting left tackle as a true freshman. Now you've got true bookend tackles and a whole bunch of experience between them. Yes, absolutely. Both lines of scrimmage are dramatically different today than they were a year ago. Now, as far as that defensive line, if you flip it over to the other side, yes, you're not going to have Mason Smith in this game, as we well know. But Brian Kelly took some time today to talk about that defensive line, even with, like he said, of course you want Mason Smith. I mean, he is a disruptor. Like, you want a disruptor on the line, no doubt. But he's very comfortable with this line, even without Mason Smith.
We really are pleased with the growth and development of our defensive line. Guys that we haven't talked a lot about, Jefferson has been outstanding in camp. We think he's physical, plays really strong at the point of attack. He's got a lot of experience playing at West Virginia, and he's going to be a really good football player. Guillory's been outstanding. First step quickness is his ability to gain penetration. He's going to be a handful. And Lee has been probably one of the surprises. The transfer from Florida has probably been one of the surprises of camp for us. He didn't have a great spring. He worked harder in the weight room, and he's done a nice job, for us in terms of adding to the depth of that defensive tackle position.
So keep in mind, no Mason Smith, but you got Mekhi Wingo. When you lost Mason Smith a year ago, you had 3 defensive linemen that you rotated on the interior, defensive tackles. 3. It was Jaquelin Roy, Jacobian Guillory, and Mekhi Wingo. Now, none of us thought Mekhi Wingo would play a major role a year ago. None of us did. He was a diminutive guy coming in from Missouri who had a nice season at Missouri, but nobody thought that kid was coming in to have a gigantic impact. You lose Mason Smith 6 plays into the season, and he goes on to be an All-American. So you've got Wingo back. You have Jaquelin Roy or Jacobian Guillory, who's a 330-pound space eater. He's right. Brian Kelly's right. Jordan Jefferson, still weird to say, the defensive lineman from West Virginia, is a physical dude on the interior who's north of 300 pounds. We have not talked at all about Jalen Lee, who, of course, from Live Oak, who went to Florida, is now transferred in. But that clearly is another guy. As I often say, sometimes what we see, the media, when we're allowed to watch practice, isn't the same thing that the coaches are looking at. So clearly they see something with Jalen Lee in that rotation that they like a lot. So my point is, you got bodies. You've got a ton of established talent with Wingo and Guillory and Jefferson. Now you add Lee into that mix as well, and some of the younger guys behind him. You have plenty of bodies to keep a fresh rotation throughout the game on that interior, even without Mason Smith. So there's a lot to like about this LSU team and where they are. They're healthy. They're deep and talented on both lines of scrimmage. You've got all but one of your running backs available for this game. You've got a 5th-year senior starter at quarterback. Yes, you undeniably have a question in the secondary, and they're going to have to see how that goes, and that's a tall order against a really good Florida State team. Even Brian Kelly said at special teams, they expect to be dramatically better at special teams this year, And can you play that one, please? This was Brian Kelly on special teams.
They got to field the ball. They've got to be able to do the little things the right way. But from a special team standpoint, that's what we were looking for. Our miscues last year were evident, right? We didn't field the ball very well. But that, coupled with Damon Ramos, has been outstanding, with field goals throughout camp. And Jay Bramlett has been a weapon. We think special teams should and can be a positive for us and influence games.
I mean, all three phases, you're deep, you're talented, you're experienced, you're good. It's why this team is a preseason top 5 team. And Brian Kelly, even if it wasn't intentional, in a sort of understated way, validated everything that we thought. So great to see. Game week is upon us. Tigers are healthy, they're ready. Now it's got to go show. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.